Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 35 of Age Gap Love Story. And today we're going to be talking about the pros and cons of marriage, and specifically for age gap couples. And if you're new here, we are Carrie,
I'm Alan.
and we are a married couple. And just yesterday, we celebrated our 19th year wedding anniversary.
Woohoo!
We're working on 20 years now, which is really cool. We're gonna have to do something really special next year.
Maybe we'll go to bed at 8:45 instead of 8:30.
Okay. And we are a married couple. We have a 32 and a half year age difference. And we started this channel and podcast about, 2 years ago now, because we felt like there was a need in the age gap community for more support and resources. And so that's what we're trying to do here. So we thought today we would talk about this topic of marriage because it's kind of timely because of our anniversary. And we thought we'd do it in 3 sections. We would talk about some of the reasons that age gap couples should get married, then some of the reasons that maybe you shouldn't. And then we thought we'd talk about some of our experiences with marriage and some of the lessons we've learned over the 19 years. So, we are big believers of marriage. We think that it kind of helps with stronger relationships. It satisfies societal norms. It could be beneficial financially and for other reasons. It helps make families stronger. So overall, we are proponents of marriage. We think if you are a strong couple, that it can be really beneficial. And just to say, though, we're not therapists, we're not offering professional advice, we're just kind of offering our opinions here. We always want to encourage people to seek professional counseling or therapy if you're having real issues, because we're not trained in that. And we also want to hear from you too, so please join our Facebook group and our Instagram. Follow us there so we can connect even further. So why don't we jump in with some of the reasons that we feel why age gap couples should get married. Do you want to go first?
I will go first. I think one important reason is that it will solidify your relationship. Over the years, I've known men and women who don't make the commitment for marriage, and it seems like they have a serial, ongoing uh, relationship issue where they'll meet somebody, they get serious, and a little bump in the road will come along. And because they're not married, they're not going to make the effort to resolve the issue, and they move on to somebody else. And so they never really find the person that they think will be perfect. And I think, candidly, there is nobody that's really perfect. You have to give and take. And so I think it's really important to consider if you want to make the commitment, then you go forward and you make adjustments along the way. I think also society tends to be more accepting today of people that are couples that are not married. But in the long run, I think if you're married, you'll find that you'll fit in better with groups of other people that are married, that do have longer term relationships, that are happy couples. And I think it'll put you into that group by being married, sort of a bridge of commonality.
Yeah, and I also want to mention that marriage officially makes you a family. I mean, of course, families can look all different ways, and we're supportive of families that are diverse and unique and different. But in the eyes of the government and society, really, marriage makes you a family. And I remember just a few weeks after Alan and I got married, I thought to myself, Alan and I are a family. And it gave me a really nice feeling. Um, and I didn't necessarily have that feeling before we got married. Obviously, we were a committed couple even before we got married, but that idea of being a family was really special, and it didn't occur to me until we got married.
I think the key is having somebody who you care for and who cares for you. And if you're married, you should have that. And if you don't have that, then you shouldn't be married. You probably shouldn't be a couple. It's just really important to think about the benefits of commitment. Another aspect of marriage is the financial aspect, and this should not be the primary reason that you get married, but it's something to consider. A lot of couples can do better financially than they can on their own. One aspect is filing a joint tax return, which is a small benefit in most cases, not in every, but it's also you have two incomes to find a place to live, you have two incomes to support your daily lifestyle, you have financial resources to share. If one person loses a job temporarily or has issues financially, then the other person can help out. So there are financial benefits that need to be considered.
Right. So even sharing healthcare, getting on each other's healthcare plan, or because not all couples do have two incomes. So if one partner is working, then the other couple, the other partner can maybe get on their health insurance, stuff like that, which is kind of just a reality of our modern world these days that we have to think about some of these things. I think Alan mentioned this, but once you're married, I mean, most of us have some kind of a ceremony, even if it's just in front of one person or even a small group of people, but we're making that commitment to each other. And if you never get married, or I mean, we've known some couples who, for financial reasons, actually don't get married because it's more financially beneficial to stay separate. But they do have a ceremony, and they have kind of the all the kind of the ceremony of marriage without making it official. But it's that kind of going through that process and sharing with your friends, maybe having a party or a celebration. So whether it's official or not official, just kind of that going through that process makes it like a true commitment. And then maybe because you've made that commitment to your partner and then in front of all your friends and family, I think potentially marriage means that you might work harder to get through issues that come up. So you might be just more encouraged to work through issues.
Right. Now, there are also 2 points on the aspect of marriage that I wanted to bring up also. One, going back to the financial aspect, we've known couples where there is an age difference or the ages are somewhat similar in that they're both old enough to be on Social Security and they don't want to be married because it will have a negative impact on their Social Security benefits. So, as Carrie said, couples can have a ceremony without legally becoming married, but emotionally and romantically, they do become married, um, absent the legal aspect. And then the second thing, with respect to a legal aspect, we were married by a judge. We weren't married because we both have different religious backgrounds, and religion is not a big aspect in our life. And if it is in yours, that's fine. That's certainly your choice. However, if you're concerned about how a family might react or how your religious affiliation might be impacted, don't think that to be married you have to have a big wedding or that you have to invite a ton of people or it has to be in a religious setting. You can just go to the city hall and get a marriage license and get married by a judge or a justice of the peace. It depends upon your state and the local laws. And then you can have a little reception afterwards or none. It depends on you, but you don't have to make a big deal out of it.
Yeah. And you added this. I thought this was really neat. So you should say that one. Our final point on kind of an argument for people to get married.
Yes, and that is sharing life's experiences. I remember when I first separated after my first marriage and I was alone, I thought, oh, well, I'm going to have some fun. I'm going to go to Las Vegas. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I quickly discovered that going places and doing things by yourself is not fun. At least it wasn't for me. Maybe it will be for you or has been. If you're used to that, I don't know. But I can remember also many business trips I took on my own. And it was lonesome. it's nice to have somebody to share your life's experiences with, both the downs and the ups. It smooths the bumps and it enhances the joys.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So why don't we move into the second section, which is maybe some reasons to think about not getting married? Because I get a lot of messages, and I love getting your messages. I really, it brightens my day to hear from you, whether you message me on Instagram or you post in the Facebook group or you leave a comment on Instagram. But I hear from all types of people in age gap relationships who are going through different types of situations, and some of them are very complicated. And it brings up the point that there for sure are situations where marriage would not be appropriate. And so we don't want to, be here advocating saying that everybody should get married, because truly, and I've heard, as I mentioned, from some of you, when you explain your situation, it just seems very clear that marriage, maybe should not be the next step, or that you're not with the right person. So we came up with 4 reasons that we thought, maybe you should take pause before you make that big step.
I will take the first 2 items. One is if your relationship is purely physical, a physical attraction, and that's what entices you to stay with or to pursue that person, that is not a long lasting reason for a relationship. And
Or marriage.
or for marriage, yes. So I would strongly recommend that you consider that, because the physical aspect will wear off. I think in virtually all cases. The second reason you shouldn't get married is if during your relationship you don't agree on some really significant points, like religion, like having children, like if you have children from a prior marriage, how much attention or financial support you give to them. There can be a lot of reasons that throw up barriers. And if you can't overcome those barriers during the initial stages of your relationship, you're not going to overcome them when you get married. They're only going to get more severe with time. So I think that's another reason why you shouldn't be married.
Yeah, and you pointed out, one kind of warning sign is if you're arguing a lot, or you're, just unhappy a lot. That's not going to get better once you get married. It's probably just going to get worse, because you've just made this legally binding commitment to each other, and it's probably just going to make things more complicated. Also, I think it's really important to take into consideration the financial risks that you are making when you get married for both partners, because it is a legally binding contract. I think it varies by state, but you are making a commitment that there are going to be some legal issues if you break that commitment. Even if you have a prenuptial agreement, that could still, there could be lawyer fees and things like that. So you really, and then of course, divorce. There's always going to be repercussions of divorce, both financially and emotionally. And I mean, the truth is, at least in the United States, the divorce rate is 50% for first time marriages, and I believe it goes up to 70% for second marriages. So,
On the point of financial exposure, a specific example I can share with you is that years ago I had an employee, a lady, very nice, very highly educated lady, and she had recently divorced from her first husband, her only marriage, and she found out later that she had signed their tax returns because they filed jointly, and her husband evidently never made payments. He evidently was an entrepreneur and had to make quarterly tax payments because he did not have withholding, not being an employee. He never made those payments, and he just skipped paying his state income tax in California. And after they separated and divorced, he had no money, he was bankrupt. So the state came after her, and she had to pay taxes on the income that he made while they were married. and it was a tremendous financial burden for her for quite a long time.
Yeah, I mean, even my own parents had a situation where my parents both had money issues, and then when they were separated, my dad ran up a bill on a credit card, and my mom, because she was making more money, I think that she had to pay some sort of expense on that. I don't even know what, everything that went down, but I know it was not good, and it put a burden on her for a situation that she really wasn't even involved in. So I mean, we've talked about financial issues before on this channel or podcast. So I would definitely go back and look at some of those episodes if this is your situation where you're uncertain about your partner's financial situation, or you're in a tenuous position. I just think that um, that's something that you really need to consider. And we are big proponents of prenuptial agreements.
Right. And
So,
it's extremely important. If you're in a relationship, you are the one that has the larger assets or the greater earning power. And I'm not to say that your potential or existing partner is there to take advantage of you as a gold digger, but you do need to be aware and you do need to be cautious. I mean, I'm 80 years old, as I mentioned earlier, and my career was in finance, and I have seen so many cases where people that are really slick, really appear to be trustworthy, really are loving and appear to be so genuine, have very malicious intent towards other people. So you need to be extremely cautious and to be content that your decision on somebody's trustworthiness is solid.
yeah, and a prenuptial agreement will put everything out in the open. And so that is a way to protect yourself.
Right. And if somebody resents that, I mean, you just lay it out. You have worked all your life. Again, if you're the older person or you're the younger person with assets you may have inherited, maybe you haven't earned it, but you have to state clearly that you have to protect your assets. Your family would expect it. Your heirs would expect it. You expect it. And that your potential partner shouldn't resent it, that you don't distrust them or think that they're dishonest or have malicious intent, but it's just something that you feel is common sense that needs to be done.
Yeah, I would agree with that. As the younger partner, I was not put off at all by the idea of a prenuptial agreement. In fact, because I loved Alan so much, it pained me to think that if something happened to our relationship, that he would be, I mean, obviously he's not going to go back to work at 80 years old or even 10 years ago. I mean, we were still working, but the point is, I saw what he went through with his first marriage and divorce, and how painful financially that was for him, and it put a huge burden on him. And I wouldn't didn't want to do that with our relationship. I think it made it more, I don't know, just more clear that we were getting married because we loved each other. Um, and
That's an excellent point. If the prenup is a real block in going forward in a relationship, then it might be an indicator that the other person has more interest in finance than they do in you.
yeah, and just another point, I did, make sure, because in California, it's important that both parties are represented by independent counsel. So I had my own,
When you do a prenup.
yes, so I had my own separate attorney, and she made sure that, it wasn't like if we got divorced that I would get nothing, or I would just be thrown out on the street out of our home. So, a prenup doesn't have to be that. In fact, a prenup actually can prevent that. So it puts a lot of those concerns to rest, I think. So then when you get married, it really is about love and commitment
Right.
and
And
the
not,
future.
yeah, not to beat the subject to death, maybe this should be the final comment, but I think I mentioned maybe in the finance section that there are ways you can create a prenup. And the way we created ours, which is now pretty much expired because we've been married so long, is that I set it up so each year Carrie would get an increasing part of my assets. So the longer we were together, up to a certain point, which would reach 100%, each year there would be an increase if we did separate as to how much she would receive. And I thought, in my mind, that the longer we were together, the more solid our relationship would be. And at some point, it would be rock solid. And that's the way it worked out. It was fine.
Yeah, and I mentioned this before, but I'm also a big advocate of women, especially being able to take care of ourselves and really the younger partner in general. So I know it's harder if you have children and things like that, but I think it's really important for women, no matter what, no matter if you're married or you're single or you're in a relationship, to always have skills. Make sure to keep your skills up to date so you could always take care of yourself. If I had children, that would be a lesson that I would drill into, especially if I had daughters, I would drill that into their heads to not be dependent on anyone. I mean, to an extent, at least have some way of earning money. So get a degree or go to a vocational school, have some kind of skill set. So if you're watching this and you're the younger partner, I hope you'll take my advice, because I just say that
from Auntie Carrie.
I just really believe that very, very, very strongly. And I was not taught that. I kind of just learned that on my own. So, my parents did not really set me up well for life. I mean, they did not offer me a lot of support. So I had to take care of myself. But I think a lot of times women, or just kids, any kind of kids, they do have support from their family, which is great, but that may not always be there, and you really do need to be able to take care of yourself. Okay. And then the last point that we had for a reason not to get married is kind of obvious, but if you're just not ready for a serious relationship, maybe you've only known your partner less than a year, I think, that's maybe you just need a little bit more time before you take that next step. Oh, and I just thought of another one too. If you've had a really bad breakup, you've had a really bad divorce, maybe just a ton of emotional baggage that you haven't worked through yet, you don't want to bring all those problems to a second marriage or a third marriage. So it might be time to do some work on yourself before you get married to prevent problems.
Right. And it may have put you in a state where you rush into a relationship that you really shouldn't be in. So they call that, I'm sure you've heard of this, a rebound romance or a ricochet romance.
Okay.
In fact, I think there was a country in Western song, ricochet romance.
For the third section of this podcast / video, we thought we would just share some of the things that we've learned, because now we are officially an old married couple.
May I go first?
Sure.
I do that because we have a list of things to cover, and I have to look at the list and get them off my chest before I forget them. Anyway, I think it's really important that we've learned that you have to accept concessions and accommodations to your partner, and they should do the same for you. And that way you sort of coalesce to an agreement. You're not going to get everything you want in a relationship, and neither is your partner. And we've talked about this many times. We have a gardener next door that's approaching, so we're going to have to end this soon. Another reason, another thing that we
wait, I want to say one thing. I know why you added that to the list. So Alan can be very, very stubborn. And just the other day, we were having a silly argument about where to put the extra refrigerator in our garage. And we were both getting kind of upset. And I think he realized that he was being too stubborn. So he finally just said, okay, whatever you want, basically.
I say that more than once, I think, about a lot of things, actually.
Not enough. So I know that's why you added that to the list. And I appreciate it, because it's not worth it to argue about little things. So yes. If it's not like the hill you want to die on, quote unquote, Just let it go.
Or the refrigerator that you want moved.
Or the
Okay.
refrigerator on your head.
Yes. And my second point is that, as I mentioned earlier, I have discovered that it is very gratifying to be able to care for someone and to have someone care for you. I mean, we do so many things expressing our love to one another from simple things like, oh, I heard the washer's done. You want me to throw your clothes in the dryer? Or if I'm sitting and watching TV, can I bring you a little snack, some cheese, maybe a little glass of wine? Oh, that's great. Little things like that you show your love to each other. It's so rewarding and fulfilling in a relationship. Wouldn't you say?
Yes.
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 Can we talk about the refrigerator now?
Nope, that is a done deal. And I would say for me, it's just really important to be friends, to be like best friends. I mean, when Alan and I were dating, and maybe even at the beginning of our marriage, I don't know that I would have said you were my best friend. But now, as we've spent so many years together, for sure, Alan is my best friend. He's my most trusted confidant. He he's my most trusted advisor when I ask for his advice.
Except about refrigerators.
I didn't ask about that. And so it is really important because you're going to like look at this pandemic situation. Um, it was the two of us, and I'm sure for many of you as well. We didn't see people for what, 2 years almost. It was the two of us in the house with our cats. If we hadn't been able to get along, it would have made it horrible. But we actually, I think, grew closer because of that. I would also say, I think we've mentioned this before, but as you're together longer, that you try to grow together because you are going to grow and evolve over your relationship. So
and you will change.
yeah, so everybody, the partners are going to change. So it's important that you try to change together. And so maybe you try to learn new fun things together, or you join, like, we're going to maybe join our friends' hiking group. That's something that we're going to do together. So that's important. And then I would say the last point is just don't take your partner for granted. Try to, enjoy every day together and appreciate that you're both, you've both made this commitment, and just that love is really special and it needs to be nurtured and respected. No, like this.
Yeah, whatever.
That's a better heart.
I can't do that. Like that.
No. Throw your hands like this and like this. Okay, if you're listening to the podcast, you missed Alan's pathetic attempt to make a heart with his hands. Okay, that is it for this topic. We hope that you are having a great summer so far. We intend to keep publishing every 2 weeks, and so we will see you in another couple of weeks.
And stay in touch.
Yes, take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.